Hi, it's Stephen Hughes, your hardship real estate pro here again on the YouTube channel. Today I have Kirk Kristian with SOS Moving. Instead of me butchering a introduction with a guest, I always ask my guests to please introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do and about their business. And yeah, just go ahead, Kirk. Tell us what you do and who you are.
Stephen, thank you. My name is Kirk Kristian with a company called SOS Senior Moving Solutions. We're just starting our sixth year right now, and we're a moving company. But what we do is we specialize in moving seniors who've been in their homes for, 40, 50, 60 plus years when they're moving into maybe a senior community, whether that's independent, assisted living, or even memory care. We work with a lot of adult children as well. So it's not just helping them downsize. We do downsizing. We can help them move into that community. But after they move, they've been in that house. What do they do with everything that's left? So we can help with the estate liquidation. We can do estate sales, home cleanouts, get the house ready for someone like Steven to come in and sell the house, because usually that's what happens. So it's a little bit of an aliquot menu, if you will.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing. I think what's interesting is some people would hear that and it's like, well, okay, you put the word senior in front of it. I mean, what really makes you different from two guys in a truck? Or, why shouldn't we just get a U-Haul and help mom move into the nursing home or something? I want you to talk a little bit about like what makes you different from, you know, Mayflower. Like maybe you can talk a little bit about your history in the moving industry as well, because there's gonna be people watching this and they're gonna be like, "Well, what's the big deal? Like, really, what's different?"
Well, okay, we got four things. We'll get to NASSMM, National Association of Senior Move Managers, in a little bit. I
Yeah.
started this company 6 years ago. I started in the moving industry. I was with the local affiliate for Mayflower here. Mayflower, of course, one of the country's oldest movers. I was with Mayflower, and I thought, for good or bad, folks are always moving in and out of a senior community, right? And so I put a bunch of time in networking with those, working with senior communities. And within a few months, I learned two things. First, when the work started to come in, the boss didn't want, at the time, what was a $300 move and somebody moving into a studio apartment. That wasn't what Mayflower was about. They wanted the multi-thousand-dollar move across country, which makes sense. But what I really learned was that a lot of people, and seniors in particular, needed help with downsizing. They didn't know what to do. The adult children, the local children, they didn't have time to help mom or dad. They wanted to, or the parents that we were helping, their kids were scattered across the country, so they weren't able to help. So we help assuage a lot of that guilt. Most people, when they move into an assisted living or senior community, they should have done it years earlier, in my own humble opinion. So physically, they're not able to go through, what they really need. And they're not taking that much, but it's the box that's been under the cupboard for 30 years and hasn't seen daylight. What do we do with all this stuff that's left over? They want to give it to charity, or they want to donate it to the church or wherever it may be, but they need somebody physically to help that. So that's how I came to start Senior Moving Solutions, because it was a solution. People had problems with all this. That's what makes it different than a large moving company. A lot of them don't want these smaller jobs, and some of them can be quite small. The difference between any other moving company, this is what we specialize in. So my moving teams, I like to say, they're a little more polite, but there's some good moving companies out there, but they work with seniors. I'm going to say 19 out of 20 jobs. They have an idea. You've got to leave enough room for the bed for a wheelchair to go through, especially if you're in a small one-bedroom apartment. These are situations, we see the same situations day in and day out. It takes a lot more patience, especially to work with people who are much senior, we'll put it that way, or physically infirm, however it is. We're familiar with most of the communities, the senior communities in the area. Where are you going to park? You don't want to go to this community during lunch hour because they only have one elevator, which can make for a real mess. There's a bunch of little things like that that do differentiate us. That's what we specialize is. We know these communities, we know the people in the communities, and we've moved in many of the people of the communities. Most of our work, I'd say 90% of our work, is word of mouth throughout the communities.
You talked about really kind of the smaller job and really being patient. It reminds me of kind of the other part of the senior move management that you're doing, and that's sometimes you're managing estate sales. And a lot of those estate sales are smaller. So maybe talk about when you're moving some of these seniors into these senior communities, you were talking about sorting through, box that hasn't been touched in 30 years and not just the physically moving things, but sorting through all that personal property. And maybe you talk a little bit about that in the estate sale stuff you do with SOS Moving.
Be happy to. And to back up a little bit, this will be a good spot for the editing. A lot of times when folks are moving into a studio apartment, they'll call up and we're just moving, we're moving a bed, a sofa, an oversized chair, and a TV, and everything will be packed. But we realize 8 times out of 10, there's going to be a little extra packing that we're going to have to do. They forgot this. We want to make sure that they've brought enough toiletries. Or we'll go through the closet. We bring the wardrobe. So it's the little extra touches that we'll do for the seniors. Most of them think they're prepared, but they're not, unless they're really working with usually a daughter who lives locally. Sons could do a good job as well. As far as the estate sale, most estate sale companies want to see that a sale is going to generate a gross about $10,000. It's just the way most business models work for estate sale companies. I like to say we're more estate liquidation. A lot of our sales generate somewhere between 2 grand. I mean, we've done sales in the upwards of $20,000 range, so we can do a high end sale. Most people don't have $10,000 worth of stuff that they're selling unless they have high end artwork or a couple 4x4s or something like that side by sides that they're going to sell. But they've been in a house for 40 or 50 years. They usually have one or two very nice antiques, maybe some nice furniture, some high end furniture, some Drexel, maybe Ethan Allen, something along those lines that will be worth some money, or one or two pieces of artwork. But you've got the table saw that's still worth $100 or $200. You've got a garage that probably has $1,000 worth of tools in it. Maybe there's a craft room. Maybe there's a nice sewing machine that's worth $600 or $200. You just don't want to give it away. That helps pay for the clean out. So we'll go in and we'll set up for the estate sale with the idea being that we want to get rid of as much stuff as possible at a good price. But the more people pay you to take stuff out of the house, the less it's going to cost the client to have the home cleaned out afterwards.
I mean, it's kind of like in my business, I end up doing a lot of harder transactions that other realtors don't want to deal with because it's too much time. Or we end up working with lower income properties where the commission's not as high. And there's a lot of people that need that help. So you're kind of doing it's very similar. It's part of why we get along personally and in terms of our business philosophy.
True.
That's basically what you're talking about. You saw a need when you were basically getting people moved out, these seniors, and it's like, hey, here's a service where we need to liquidate the estate. Yes, it'll generate some income, but we'll apply that money towards what we were charging you anyways to clean out all this stuff and move you out, as opposed to just cutting us a check. So
That's exactly right. There was a need there, and the larger estate sale companies, they just didn't want to touch it. And like I said, the family's too busy. They don't have time. And we're not talking hoarding houses. That's a whole nother situation. And we've done them. It's your standard family that's been in the house for 50 years has so much stuff, that generation. And I'm the back end of that generation. I can call myself a senior. I can move into a 55 plus community tomorrow. We collect too much stuff is what it is. So like I said, most estate sale companies, they don't want to touch it. There is a need for that. And, if they were to call one of these just junk removal companies, it's not junk. It's a lifetime of memories. So people feel a lot better knowing that, yeah, I'm selling it at an estate sale, but it might be grandma's gravy boat or something like that they've had. Maybe they're only getting $3, $5, or $15 for it, but they know whoever bought that is going to love that gravy boat. It's getting repurposed. It's getting reused. Also, after we do a sale, we do our best to bring in a few different charities, not charities that run thrift stores. We work with them as well, but a lot of charities that'll come in and they're giving it directly to people. They're not reselling it. 2 years ago, I hate to say it, the hot thing, but the hot thing was refugee families that were coming over from Ukraine. And we helped a few church groups. They were coming in, they were getting utensils. Not all the utensils matched, and they could get the spices out of the cabinets. Stuff like that was going directly to people who needed them. Right now, clothing, I'm working with a men's group here. They needed extra large clothing. We're doing a clean out in Syracuse, and the gentleman was a 2X. So it worked perfectly. Had a bunch of winter clothing. You know, it's cold out. Whenever this interview is going to be done, it was set 5 degrees when I woke up this morning. So we try not to waste anything as opposed to let's just go in, sell it all, and then throw the rest in a dumpster. We do have a dumpster. A lot of times it's easier and more cost effective to throw stuff in a dumpster in the long run, but we do try not to waste anything, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it, different in terms of your business model, and that's why, I've had other realtors who are constantly asking some of these groups like, "Oh, who's an estate sale company? Who's an estate sale company?" Because they don't have really any how any of it works. And it's like you really need to talk to Kirk because what are the circumstances? Like, are they moving into a community? What exactly is going on? Any because you're the only one who does all this other stuff with it. I mean, you're not just the estate sale company trying to get the big ticket items on the East Edge, the big Draper estate sale, or you're not just the two guys in a truck.
And with what you said there with the estate sale companies, most of them want to do a $10,000 minimum. Most of them, they really want the 20, 30 plus $1,000 plus estate sale. They may spend 4 to 6 weeks setting up for a sale that big, but in 6 weeks where they're going to do one sale, well, let's be kind. Let's say they set up 4 weeks for one big $25,000 sale. And so in 1 month's time, I could probably do six, if not eight. I could do two sales a weekend with my team, one team on this sale, one team on that sale. We might do eight $5,000 sales. So we can go in and we're set up to make it quicker and just be more efficient with it. And we do things a little bit differently. We can get into that later. With NASSMM, the National Association of Senior Move Managers, it's set up to help seniors move, is really it is. All the things that I'm doing, except for moving. Some senior move managers might be moving companies. Most are not. Some do estate liquidation. Some don't. Most of them help with seniors downsize. So they're coming out again out of a house they've been in for 40 years. And it's saying, Margaret, you don't need a China service for 12 anymore. When was the last time you had a dinner party that large? So what do we do with that China set? Maybe you just give one place setting to each granddaughter. And there's a lot of tricks and tips that we do there when you're downsizing. So senior move managers really help facilitate the move to make the transition into a senior community as smooth and as calm as possible, as stress-free as possible for the senior or for the senior's family as well. Many of them do estate liquidations. There are a few of us who are movers. Since my background was moving, it just seemed right to tie it in. Many of them will do cleanouts. A lot of them are downsizers and professional organizers. I just kind of combined everything into one. It's a great organization. I've called on them when I've gotten calls from out of state. And there's a few of us here in Utah. And I know I call them co-opetition, right? We've referred business to each other. It's friendly. It's not competition. It's really what's best for the seniors, who can help who and how can they be helped, really. So it's a really good organization.
I don't really have any other questions. You kind of summarized everything you're doing. I guess the only other question I'd have, just because it could be fun for some people who are watching, and then I'll ask one question, and then you can give us some like final thoughts, and then we'll kind of say bye. You mentioned hoarder houses. Maybe you could tell us something about that, and then give us just some final thoughts.
Hoarding houses, we started one just the other day where only two people could go through the front door and handing trash out to the dumpster because there was not enough room to get three people in there. And it was a single file we were handing trash out. And it took, I guess, 3 hours before we could get a third person in. We had to go through pretty much everything because there was paperwork that was needed that we had to look for. We knew that there were weapons in the house. We knew at one point there was at least two nice, very high-end watches. So it wasn't just grab a shovel and throw it all in the dumpster. You have to go through everything. It's tedious work, but we have teams that are trained how to do it and to do it efficiently, quickly. And you find some interesting stuff in any of this, not so much the hoarding houses. I'll give you a good example. My favorite story, I think. I like steamer chests, the old steamer chests. And a lady had one. It was in great condition. She goes, "Let me tell you about that." I go, "All right." She goes, "I was supposed to come over with my grandmother," and this lady was in her 70s. She goes, "I was supposed to come over with my grandmother from Ireland when she was a little girl back in the early 1900s, but she took ill. And of course, back then, when you took ill, oh, you didn't go get antibiotics. You were down for the count for a few months. Well, so she had to, she missed her passage on the Titanic, is what happened. So that chunk didn't come over on the Titanic. But what, 8, 10 years later or 6 years later, she did come to America, and that truck came across on the Lusitania. Now, if you know your history, the Lusitania is the one that the Germans bombed on the way back to Ireland that got the US into World War One. You see a lot of things and you hear a lot of the great stories when you're working with seniors. It really is, you think here's some older person, right? And maybe they're not doing well, but they've had a life just like you, me, and any people. I met a gentleman last year. He did 17 trips on a first aid boat during World War II, and he could tell fascinating stories there. His body was wrecked, but he had great stories. And you meet other people, their mind is gone, sadly, but you can see their memories when you're going through someone's house. You know, a lot of them were in the service, the men and the women, just they have some great stories, and that's what makes the job kind of, satisfying, if you will, fulfilling, and you are helping people. It is a good feeling.
When you're talking to people that have been around 70, 80, 90 years, and a lot of times they don't have anyone to talk to, it's kinda nice because they'll tell you some story that they're dying to tell, or they haven't told someone for 30, 40, 50 years, or, sometimes they'll tell you a story and you can kinda tell maybe they haven't told someone that story, maybe even their own kids, which is very interesting, you know? I appreciate having you on the YouTube channel. For those of you that are watching, just know that you can reach Kirk at the information below in the description box. But just for the algorithm, internet powers that be, Kirk, can go ahead and just say out loud how people can find you on the internet.
We are at SOS Senior Moving Solutions, or you can call us directly at 801-644-6147. And Stephen, thank you for having me on. Always happy to help. One last thing, we get a lot of people who they're not quite ready to move, but they want to downsize, and we're happy to help. Just answer any questions. To call, give us a call, and we're happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see
Thank
everyone
you.
next time.
See
Bye.
you soon.